Well, let's begin. Father, we give you uh, all thanks, all glory for the good and mighty and just God that you are. And we're thankful, Lord, that you have called us together to lift up the name of Jesus Christ. Father, for those that are ailing, by the way, we're tickled to see Ray back, and we give you the honor and glory for that. And Lord, as Jim is having troubles with his back, I just pray that you would give him rest and comfort, and raise him back up, Lord, if you would. Help us to have hearts that want to navigate and interpret and apply your word to our hearts. So bless this word in Jesus' name. Amen. Second Chronicles 1. Second Chronicles 1:1. Second Chronicles. We've had 19 chapters concerning David. Before that, there was one very short chapter, chapter 10, on Saul. And then before that, there were 9 chapters of names. Israel's history, all the starting in First Chronicles 1:1 with Adam. there's your history. Then it goes right to Abraham, and then the 12 sons, the 12 tribes, and then the chapter, I think it's chapter 10, Solomon, is about the failure of Solomon, because it only records one thing about Solomon, and that's his death. And it was a suicide. So that was a dark spot in Israel, really. Carol? Saul? Oh, okay. Yeah. Saul, and then again, there's 19 chapters about David, and it's not everything about David, but it is it is a very positive look at David, even though there are a couple of places where David is not seen in a bright light, when he tried to move the ark, and then when he counted the people, and disaster took place both times. And so now we come to Solomon. And Solomon is the son of David, and he is the down payment. He's the surety of the covenant that God made with David for an eternal kingdom that would be eternally ruled by one of his sons. So that's the last great covenant before the new covenant. which is the extension, the add-on of the Davidic covenant and all the other covenants. So we come to 9 chapters of First Chronicles about Solomon, not Saul, but Solomon has already been twice anointed king. That'll happen a third time. But the fact is, God anointed him king the day he was born. Now, we looked at that back there in Samuel, or when Solomon was born. God told Nathan the prophet, he's the one. That's my son. My son. He's a son of God now, from birth. And so now comes the time when at the end of the last chapter of First Chronicles, David dies. And now David told the people before he died, he said, you guys go easy on Solomon. He's young and inexperienced. And so the young, inexperienced Solomon is who Ezra puts on display here. In verse 1, now Solomon, the son of David, established himself securely over his kingdom, and the Lord his God was with him and exalted him greatly. Solomon spoke to all Israel, to the commanders of thousands and of hundreds, and to the judges, and to every leader in all Israel, the heads of the fathers' households. Then Solomon and all the assembly went with him to the high place, which was at Gibeon. For God's tent of meeting was there. That's the tabernacle, which Moses, the servant of the Lord, had made in the wilderness. However, David had brought up the ark of God from Kiriath Jearim to the place he had prepared for it, for he had pitched a tent for it in Jerusalem. Now the bronze altar, which Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, had made, was there before the tabernacle of the Lord, and Solomon and the assembly sought it out. Solomon, verse 6, went up there before the Lord to the bronze altar, which was at the tent of meeting, and offered 1,000 burnt offerings on it. In that night God appeared to Solomon and said to him, ask what I shall give you. Now, as far as I can remember, that's the only time in Scripture where God has offered a blank check to somebody. Can you think? I can't think of that happening before. But he did to Solomon. Verse 8. Solomon said to God, you have dealt with my father David with great loving kindness. There's that word hesed, covenant, loyalty, faithfulness, and have made me king in his place. Now, O Lord God, your promise to my father David is fulfilled, for you have made me king over a people as numerous as the dust of the earth. Verse 10, give me now. Boy, can you imagine if that was you? Can I imagine if that was me? Give me now wisdom and knowledge. Brother, he wasn't born in America. Give me now wisdom and knowledge that I may go out and come in before this people. Go out and come in. There's been 2 Hebrew idioms there. One was as numerous as the dust of the earth, and here's another one. Go out and come in. It just means deal with, govern, uh, uh, from this people. For who can rule this great people of yours? Wisdom is oozing out of this guy already. You need to see that. Only somebody who was very wise would just ask for what he asked. So you go to Matthew 7, the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus said, whatever you ask, you get, right? Get it in context. Asking takes wisdom, and not just worldly wisdom, or not worldly wisdom. It takes God's wisdom to ask and receive. So give me now wisdom, verse 10, and knowledge, that I may know how to go out and come in before this people. For who can rule this great people of yours? God said to Solomon. Because you had this in mind. By the way, in 1 Kings, where this is recorded, this is a dream that God appears to Solomon after this sacrifice of 1,000 animals at Gibeon. God appears to him in a dream. You had this in mind and did not ask for riches, wealth, or honor, or the life of those who hate you, nor have you even asked for a long life, but you have asked for yourself wisdom and knowledge, that you may rule my people, over whom I have made you king. Wisdom and knowledge have been granted you, and I will give you riches and wealth and honor, such as none of the kings who were before you has possessed, nor those who will come after you. So Solomon went from the high place, which was at Gibeon, from the tent of meeting to Jerusalem, and he reigned over Israel. Verse 14. Solomon amassed chariots and horsemen. He had 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horsemen, and he stationed them in chariot cities and with the king at Jerusalem. The king made silver and gold as plentiful in Jerusalem as stones, and he made cedars as plentiful as sycamores in the lowland. Solomon's horses were imported from Egypt and from Kew. The king's traders procured them. Kew's up in Asia Minor, way up north in Turkey, known for their horses. Solomon's horses were imported from, verse 16, from Kew, and the king's traders procured them from Kew for a price. And they imported chariots from Egypt for 600 shekels of silver apiece, and horses for 150 apiece. And by the same means, they exported them to all the kings of the Hittites and the kings of Aram. One of the first things that Solomon does is become a horse trader. Okay, let's just hold on to that for a while, because I'm already, the warning flags are already up. And there's a reason too. So, okay. Ezra relives the 500-year history of the temple. Now, it has recently, less than 100 years before, or about 100 years before, let's see, about 130 years ago, something like that. This temple that Solomon's about to build is torn down to the ground by Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, as God is punishing the people and removing them from the land because of their sin. Uh, so Ezra is reliving the glory days. And that's why there was so much about David and there's so much about Solomon. But when we get to the rest of the kings, and he's going to go through every king of Judah, there's this much, a half a chapter. Get to Hezekiah, there's 4 chapters, but Hezekiah is Hezekiah, and so on. You know, David gets the lion's share, and then here comes his son with another big hunk of Ezra's reminder to the people. This is your history, guys. This is where I started out in chapter 1. That's why I listed all the name after name after name after name. You guys have a history, but here you are after the captivity. The Babylonian captivity has been over for like 80 years, and you're wandering around in the dark. Don't you see that this kingdom was built on light? That's what we're seeing here. That is Ezra's point in everything he just said. This is a positive note for Solomon. Now, again, what just happened? Well, David just died. Did the people love David? Oh, they loved David. David was a hero any way you want to look at it. He was a hero of the faith. He protected them from their enemies. Yeah, he was a hero. But who is Solomon? What do we know about his life? From the time he's born till you get to right now, I don't know anything about him really. Well, okay. So, the people must be, in Ezra's day, these people he's talking about in Solomon's day, 500 years ago, they must be like themselves. They must be uncertain about the future because I don't know what they know about Solomon. In Solomon's day, what do we know about this guy? He was raised in the palace. He wasn't an Absalom or an Adonijah who was out there fighting with the king. Why him? He was a palace kid. So the people have to be here, as Ezra is explaining the history, they have to be a little bit unsure about what's going on. But Ezra wants you to know that there is nothing unsure about Yahweh their God. That's what the real point is. Solomon's the human character, but God is the one on display here. What can God do for a people who just lost Israel's greatest king and who are now kind of scratching their heads saying, well, what's going to happen now? Solomon's going to happen now. So, but here again, as I read through that, especially when you get to the last third of that chapter, there's the red flags. And I think that they're there on purpose. But we'll get to that when we get to it. So the nation itself of Israel is 1,000 years old, give or take, in Ezra's day. And we had 500 years of the tabernacle, the portable temple. We've had 500 years of the temple, and this is temple that they're looking at is a rebuilt temple, and it's not like Solomon's, but it's there. And Israel exists today and in Ezra's day and in any day for three reasons. First of all, God says back in somewhere, Deuteronomy or so, why did I choose Israel? Well, it wasn't because they were this mighty nation. It was just the opposite. They were poor and burdened. They were in slavery to Egypt, and I said, "You, Israel, you'll be my people." So that was number one. And then number two is the covenant with Abraham, that this people would come from Abraham's seed. That's number two. And then in chapter 17, the covenant is repeated for about the third or fourth time, and it is an eternal covenant. It means there's no end to this people. So but also we know from the get-go that this people is a stiff-necked bunch of people. They are God rejectors from right after the Exodus. But there comes that word remnant. God chooses a remnant from his own people, Israel, from his own chosen people. He has to choose another chosen, because not every Jew is saved. Not very many Jews are saved. But there's this remnant that are going to carry out that covenant with Abraham, and also the covenant in Genesis chapter 2 with Adam and Eve before the fall. God's not given up on that plan. He has every intent on going back to the original plan. So the covenant with Abraham also included Gentiles, many nations, it says in Genesis 12:3. So God has a plan, a chosen remnant from a chosen people, and a future kingdom with an eternal Davidic King of Kings. That, of course, is Jesus Christ. You can look at Romans 10:21, Isaiah 10:20 through 22, Micah 12:2. But who could fulfill this promise of an eternal kingdom? Because David just died. Solomon's going to die. They're all going to die. How can this be? Well, I remember looking at Isaiah 9 last week, but in Isaiah 9, the prophecy concerning the Messiah is more interesting the more you look at it. in Isaiah 9 and verse 6, speaking of Messiah here, for a child will be born to us, a son will be given to us, and the government will rest on his shoulders. Okay, this child that's going to be born to us, he is a king. The government rests on his shoulders, and his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God. Messiah is God. It's flat out what that means. There will be no end to the increase of his mighty God, eternal and eternal Father, meaning not God the Father, but a Father to his people eternally. And the Prince of Peace, by the way, verse 7, there will be no end to the increase of his government or of peace on the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and uphold it with justice and righteousness from then on and forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will accomplish this. So here's this eternal, beginning of verse 6, a child to be born to us. And he is a king, and he's not just an eternal king, he's two things. He is mighty God, and he is also the Son of David. He is God-man in those two verses. So, here we go. Now the lineup starts that leads to this one in Isaiah chapter 9. And Solomon, you're up first. So, what's the first thing that Solomon does? He does something that his dad did. Gathered the people together. You see that? David did that more than once. He gathered all the people together, and so that's what Solomon does. Another thing I found interesting was the book of Proverbs. Concerning this, starting in Proverbs 1. And it's interesting that for 7 chapters, there is a theme that starts with the Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel. So then he says in verse 8, the first of many repeats, he says, "Hear, my son." In chapter 2, "My son." In chapter 3, "My son." In chapter 4, "Hear, O sons." In chapter 5, "My son." In chapter 6, I'm reading verse 1 of all of them, that "My son." And in chapter 7, "My son." This was written by a son who listened to his dad. That would be David. So whatever, oh boy, I'm just a people guy. a people person. I'm not a people person, but I am a people. Uh, but uh, uh, David didn't. Yes, yes, he did. But I want you, sometime. And by the way, didn't Solomon? Yes, he did. You're not going to hear about that from Ezra. That's not his point. But if you go to the New Testament and read about Solomon, you hear about, well, Solomon's portico at Solomon's temple, and you hear Jesus tell the disciples one day that something greater than Solomon is here. What did Jesus just say? He said Solomon was great, but I'm greater. Solomon was great. In the Sermon on the Mount, he says that about being dressed like Solomon. Every time Solomon is mentioned in the New Testament, it's always in a positive light. That's because no matter how this story goes, Solomon is not burning in hell right now. He is in the presence of the Lord. I can assure you that. But there again, I'm getting ahead of myself, and actually I'm getting away from Ezra's message here, because so we're back in chapter 1 and verse 1, and it begins the word with a now. Now, the word now says that something came before now. And Ezra says nothing about what happened before now. First of all, he doesn't have to. Everybody knows what happened. What happened? So when at the end of David's life, he anoints Solomon and whatnot and everything. So then David dies and Solomon becomes king, and that's it. Well, that's not it. Man, he really had to fight for the throne, because one of David's sons named Adonijah, and I know I mentioned him last week, he thought the throne ought to have been his, and he tried to get it, and he tried to wheel and deal with Solomon's mom. He went to Solomon's mom, not to Solomon, but well, long story short, he wound up dead because of what he was doing. And Solomon did secure the throne, but it wasn't, he just went up the steps and sat down. That's not exactly what happened. So the now takes the reader back to, well, what happened up till now? Okay, we know what happened up to now. This wasn't an easy thing. Now, Solomon, the son of David, established himself. These are covenant words right here. The son of David established himself securely over his kingdom, and the Lord his God was with him and exalted him greatly. Now, there's three things there. And no matter where this goes, and no matter where I go, God's own opinion of what's happening here is that is that Solomon is securely king, and God says, I'm with him and I'm going to exalt him. Whatever we read next is God exalting Solomon. So, if you don't have questions, I do. But let's see how he starts out. And then again, going back to verses 7 and 8. Here's a blank check, Solomon. just write in what you want. I want wisdom to lead this great people of yours. That's what I want. That, and God gives him wisdom. Well, the fact is, he wouldn't have answered God the way he did unless he didn't already have wisdom. And that's why I went to Proverbs. My son, my son, my son. Where is Solomon getting all this wisdom? Already he's got it. He got it because he is a listening son. So, okay, the first thing Solomon is going to do, already showing great wisdom, and not only that, a great relationship with God. Solomon spoke to all Israel. There again, this is what his dad did. Are you listening, son? Yes. Yes, Dad. Solomon spoke to all Israel, to the commanders of thousands, of hundreds, and to judges, and to every leader of all Israel, the heads of fathers' households. Then Solomon and all the assembly went with him to the high place, which, okay, now you can get tripped up if you're an Old Testament guy on that word high place and go, high place? That's where they worship Baal and Asherah and Molech and Dagon and stuff like that, isn't it? Yes. But it's also where the tabernacle is in Gibeon in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Jerusalem, about 5-6 miles. That's where the tabernacle's at, minus the Ark of the Covenant. It's where Solomon is. How are we going to fix this? Well, that's one thing Ezra is going to tell the people. Remember your history. Solomon is the one that fixes this. He's going to build the temple. It's going to take him 7 years, but he's going to build this temple. To which people would say, yeah, but then he spent 13 years building his own palace and personal zoo and these extravagant gardens. Yeah, that's the guy. That's him. Listen to Ezra. He sounds like Jesus in the New Testament. Solomon in all his glory. The lilies of the field don't even look like Solomon in his glory. That does not sound like somebody Jesus is, he can barely get the word Solomon out of his mouth. He's Solomon. So, all right. Verse 3. Then Solomon and all the assembly went with him to the high place, which is at Gibeon. For God's tent of meeting was there, which, history, which Moses, the servant of the Lord, had made in the wilderness. Well, actually, he didn't make it, but we're about to meet the guy that did make it. These guys are important. However, verse 4, David had brought up the ark of God from Kiriath Jearim to the place he had prepared for he had pitched a tent for it in Jerusalem. And there it sits right now, Solomon might say. But we're going to Gibeon. Why? That's where the brazen altar is. That's where the tent is. That's where the priesthood is. What are we going to do there, Solomon? Says all of Israel. What are we going to do there? The first order of business of this kingdom is we're going to worship. That's what we're going to do. So, verse 5, now the bronze altar, this is where the sacrifices go. This is where they get burnt up. The bronze altar, which Bezalel, the son of Uriah, the son of Hur, had made, was there before the tabernacle of the Lord, and Solomon and the assembly sought it out. So there he drops another name that goes all the way back to Exodus, to one of the guys who had a unique skill in making bronze altars. I don't know where he learned this. Egypt is the only thing I can think of. Or it was a unique spiritual gift, but whatever it was. And we looked at this last week, going through guys like Bezalel and other people and women who made things for the tabernacle. It says that they did it with good hearts, willing hearts, willing. Okay, that's where they're heading. Here's this troop. I don't know how many people are in this gathering, but they leave Jerusalem and head north. It's a 5-mile walk, 6 miles. Verse 6, Solomon went up there before the Lord. Don't miss that, how Solomon, where his heart is. His heart is before the Lord when he goes to worship the Lord, and he brings the kingdom with him. That's who's represented here. And this is as good as it gets, for anybody, but for Solomon, this is as good as it gets. He's not a king who says, okay, now I'm king. What do I do now? What's the first order of business? The first order of business for Solomon is, we need to worship God, and I need to lead them as a whole people to the place where God is. Okay, that's where we're going. So it says Solomon went up there in verse 6 before the Lord to the bronze altar, which was at the tent of meeting, and offered 1,000 burnt offerings on it. So no matter what, this was a long night. It was a full, who knows how long it took to do this. I don't know how long it takes to worship God. But one thing I see in Solomon right now is it has no beginning and has no end. It just is. God is to be worshiped. There is a beginning to your walk with God. But as far as worship goes, that never ends. It's like Paul saying, never cease praying. How does he say that? You never do that. You're never out of contact with God if you are a born-again believer. Not ever. So, there's 6 verses. Solomon has already shown that he is a great leader, that he is a great godly man who is number one concern for his people is their walk with God. And that's what they do. They walk to God, to Gibeon. And so, does God approve of their worship? Well, that's verse 7. The answer is yes. In that night, God appeared to Solomon and said to him, "Ask what I shall give you." Okay? God's not asking that to just anybody. He's asking that to a guy who is already wise, and he's wise because he has listened to his father, and So that is a heavy question to ask somebody. But right now, Solomon's ready for it because really what he already has, he just wants more of. Verse 8, so Solomon said to God, you have dealt with my father with great loving kindness. And there's that word hesed, covenant loyalty, and have made me king in his place, referring to the covenant. I'm the down payment. Verse 9, now, O Lord God, your promise to my father David is fulfilled. What, does he think he's the Messiah? No, but he is exactly right as far as this is the full down payment of your promise to David to build him as a house. This is it. I'm it. So, for you have made me king over people as numerous as the dust of the earth. Give me now wisdom and knowledge that I may go out and come in before this people. For who can rule this great people of yours? Boy, what a loaded question. Solomon knows his history better than I do. And what kind of people Israel have been to God. Who can rule this people? Of whose? Of mine? How can I rule my kingdom? No. He says, how can I rule your kingdom? So God said to Solomon in verse 11, because you had this in mind, and did not ask for riches, wealth, honor, or the life of those who hate you, or have even asked for long life, but you have asked for yourself wisdom and knowledge that you may rule my people over whom I have made you king. Guess what you get? Wisdom and knowledge have been granted to you. And I will give you riches. Why? Oh, a test, right? No, it's a reward. But God tests people. He does some people. We know the end of the Solomon story too, don't we? But for right now, this is not a test. This is a reward. And rightly so. Solomon deserves this. God says so. So I'll give you riches and wealth and honor, such as none of the kings who were before you has possessed, nor those who will come after you. So Solomon, verse 13, went from the high place which was at Gibeon, from the tent of meeting to Jerusalem, and he reigned over Israel. Okay, this, I don't know how many times I'll say this. This is as good as it gets for Solomon. And by that I don't mean he goes downhill from here. I'm just saying this is the peak, and it's what a lesson for anybody. When Solomon says in the Proverbs, my son, my son, my son, my son, he's also saying, my daughter, my daughter, my daughter, my daughter. He's showing us in a way that there is great profit in giving yourself to God, because he's the king. He is the king. Look in a human way, he can do whatever he wants. But what does he want? Something that only a very wise man could want, and that is wisdom to rule this people of yours. So, and by the way, again, Solomon, first order of business, as far as Ezra is concerned, is to lead the people in worship to God. He sets the bar. He sets the example. So, now we come to verse 14 through 17. Solomon amassed. That's that the flags are up already. Solomon amassed chariots. Now the flags are really up, and horsemen. That means horses. Now the flags are really up. But let's go on. Now I got to remind myself here, I've got to jerk my own chain here. This is God's blessed King Solomon. That's the purpose. He had 1,400 chariots, 12,000 horsemen, and he stationed them in chariot cities with the king at Jerusalem. The king made silver and gold as plentiful as in Jerusalem as stones, and he made cedars as plentiful as sycamores in the lowland. Verse 16, Solomon's horses were imported from Egypt and from Q. Q. Okay, that's they think that is way over on the west coast of Turkey somewhere. I think, but it doesn't matter where it is. Wherever it is, they raise good horses, and so does Egypt. And these are not Arabian horses. They may be mixed. I suppose they are. But Egypt's horses are bred like the other ones. Arabian horses are fine for what they are, I guess. But no matter what you see on Ben-Hur, you're going to see a crossbred horse pulling a chariot. So that's what Solomon's after. And he's not, and so what does he do with them? Well, he builds his army up. Okay, well, that's good, right? How am I supposed to look at this? And he doesn't just keep them all to himself. He says he has cities with these newfangled war machines. Okay, and then he buys and sells. Okay. Let's go on. Verse 16, Solomon's horses were imported from Egypt and from Q and from the king's traders. The king's traders procured them from Q for a price. They imported chariots from Egypt for 600 shekels of silver apiece, and horses for 150 apiece. And by the same means, they exported them to all the kings of the Hittites and the kings of Aram. Now, the Hittites are basically, they used to be a huge worldwide power, like in Abraham's day. But by the time you get to David, the Hittites are on the slide, and their mighty warriors have become mercenaries. They sell themselves to whoever. David has a Hittite that he has most cowardly and cold-bloodedly murdered. His name is Uriah the Hittite, who, by the way, is this King Solomon's mother. Quite a soap opera, isn't it? So, all right. What I say warning flags here. Ezra says, I'm showing you how God is blessing Solomon. Ezra's asking me, why are you seeing warning flags? Well, I'll tell you, Ezra. It's because of Deuteronomy 17:16, for one. Deuteronomy 17 and verse 16. You shall surely, okay, just start in 14. When you enter the land which the Lord your God gives you, and you possess it and live in it, and you say, I will set a king over me like all the nations. This is just what they did in Samuel's day. This is why they got Saul, because they said, we want a king like the other nations around me. Verse 15, you shall surely set a king over you whom the Lord chooses. One from among your countrymen you shall set as king over yourselves. You may not put a foreigner over yourselves who is not one of your countrymen. Moreover, he shall not multiply horses for himself, nor shall he cause his people to return to Egypt to multiply horses. What did I just see? I saw the direct opposite of what I'm reading right now. I just saw Solomon do. Because I told you at the end of verse 16, you shall never again return that way to Egypt. Don't have anything to do with Egypt. Verse 17, he shall not multiply wives for himself. Oh boy. Okay, now I'm really getting, he shall not multiply wives for himself, or else his heart will turn away. Who's he talking about here? He's just given the life story of Solomon. After Solomon builds the temple in 1 Kings, it says, and Solomon married many women, and they turned his heart away from God. What am I reading about here 1,000 years ago in Deuteronomy? 1,500 years in Ezra's day. He shall not multiply wives for himself, or else his heart will turn away. Nor shall he greatly increase silver or gold for himself. What did every word of that I just read, Solomon did as a blessing from God. Okay, now the debate starts. What is going on? Why is God blessing Saul? Okay, answer number one, he's not blessing him. This is saying God's setting him up for a fall. Oh, that would be so against God's holy nature to set somebody up for a fall. Happened in the Garden of Eden, didn't it? No. Man set himself up for a fall. That's who's set up for a fall. So, what have I got here? I can't. Okay, back in chapter 18 of Chronicles, David had a battle, and it says that he fought on foot against a chariot army, and he beat them just like God said he'd do. Doesn't matter who you're fighting. If I'm with you, I go out with you. I'm the one that defeats them. That's what he told Joshua. That's not good anymore. That doesn't apply. Deuteronomy doesn't apply anymore? This is the paradox, and it is a mystery to me because no commentator touches this. John MacArthur does mention it, that Deuteronomy 17:16 says that kings don't multiply horses. But that's all he says. Nobody else. I've got a computer program with 20 Old Testament commentaries on it, and nobody touches this. Why does it bother me so much? It is in direct conflict with the law of Moses, no matter how you look at it. And I'll tell you right now, I can't sew those two things up together into a neat little package. I can't do it. There is way too much discussion here to even think about. Because the fact is, after Ezra tells about God's blessing and what Solomon does with it, which sounds to me like he goes right against the law of Moses, God doesn't say anything. There's no rebuke here. God doesn't send Nathan the prophet into Solomon and say, hey, what are you doing? Multiplying horses. Right? Okay. But if I say that, then somebody's going to say, so God's just letting him slide here? That's the wrong way to look at it. But if you want to use that word, huh? He's setting him up. See, I'm with you, Ray. I'm with you. Is it a test? I think it is a test. Is it a blessing? It's already seen as a blessing. That's why Ezra's recording this. So we've got a test and a blessing at the same time. There you go. What do you know about God? God is loving and kind, and God blesses. I'm so blessed to know God. Let me ask you again, what do you know about God? Ezra's purpose is to show God's sovereign power and control in redemptive history. No matter what I see here, God's plan is going to go off without a hitch. There's one thing. Second thing, and I've already said this, God does not rebuke Solomon for what he just did. Or at least it's not recorded. I could make up a story here and say, well, you know that God rebuked him for doing this. I'm sure that would have been recorded if that was the case. Some accuse Ezra of glossing over the real David and Solomon because of their sins. Interesting that in chapter 6 and verse 36 of 2nd Chronicles, this is when the temple is built and Solomon's praying this lofty prayer that he says in verse 36, when they sin against you, for there is no man who does not sin. There's Romans 3:23 right there. It's Old Testament and New Testament. All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. He knows that. Solomon knows that. okay, you're making a big circle around what we just what we just read, and that's all I can do is circle it. David tried to move the ark, and he did it not following the instructions in the law of Moses, and what happened? Uzziah died. That's what happened. I really have got to study this more, but Solomon just did the exact opposite of Deuteronomy 16. To the line, to the word. And here he is, blessed by God. Well, things have changed. Modern warfare is different in Solomon's day than it was in Moses' day. That does not change his word, does it? You got to keep up with the Joneses, war-wise, military-wise. Well, that answer is yes, you do in this world. But remember who Solomon's king is. He's the one with all the power. So I keep making this muddier and muddier, and I can't unmuddy it. So we're way out of time. Look over that this week sometime. Just look over those verses 14 to the end of chapter 1. Look at that and see what you find. Because the ones who do mention it just say, yeah, he got horses, and maybe one says, but Deuteronomy 16 says this, and then they leave it. But I can't leave it. But guess who's not in control? All right. Comments or questions? It's absolutely there for